Jaya Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Nitai Gauranga Jaya Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Jaya Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Jaya Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Jaya Nitai Gauranga. Gaur Gadadhar, Gaur Gadadhar, Gaur Gadadhar, Gaur Gadadhar. Gaur Gadadhar, Gaur Gadadhar, Gaur Gadadhar, Gaur Gadadhar. Gauraya Dvaita Jaya, Gauraya Dvaita, Gauraya Dvaita Jaya, Gauraya Dvaita. Gaur Shivas, Gaur Shivas, Gaur Shivas, Gaur Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Sachinandana Jai Gaurahari, Jai Sachinandana Jai Gaurahari. Oh Jai Sachinandana Jai Gaurahari, Jai Sachinandana Jai Gaurahari. Gaur 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 Gaur. Jai Gaur Hari Gaur Hari Gaur Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Shri Jagannath Rath Yatra Ke Jai Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Purushottam Kshetra Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Rath Yatra Ki Jai Shri Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakradev Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Jai Jagannath. Om Jnanatimiram Yasya Jnanam Janashalakaya Chakshurumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukam Karoti Vakshanam Bambam Gangayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataram Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Devaja Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gaura Tise Nityanandam Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalo Kalmashanashaya Janava Pataye Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Krishna Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindai Tulsi Bhakriya Keshavasvacha Krishna Bhakti Pradidevi Satchavacha Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, on this glorious Jagannath Rath Yatra Day,
в этот день Джаганнатха
I'm first of all offering my
я предлагаю свои бесконечные поклоны, мои дандават пранама и шхатха пушпанджали лотосным стопам моего возлюбленного Гурудева Нитилила Вишту Виштпада Штатара Шата Шрила Иси Бхактиведанта Свами Махараджа Шрила Прабхупада, кто принес Джаганнатха ядру в этот мир, всему миру. Вся слава Шриле Прабхупаде. Также я предлагаю свои такие же дандават пранамы шхатха пушпанджали лотосным стопам моего наипочитаемому Ашекша Гурудеву Нитилила Правишту Виштупада Парамахамсам или Бхакти Ракшак Шидар Госвами Махараджу и Нитилила Правиште Вишну Бхашта Штатара Шата Шриле Бхактиведанте Нараяне Госвами Махараджу. Оба они божественные личности, они распространили движение сознания Кришны по всему миру и дали глубокое понимание этого движения. Я предлагаю почтительный поклон моей Рупануга Гуру Варге.
Written by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Pad in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, glorifying
Можете читать о том, как Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху танцевал на Радха-ятре и множество других лил. Также я также предлагаю поклон всем преданным, которые онлайн, здесь или онлайн. Шрила Гурудев обычно говорил, пойдемте со мной, вот сейчас, пойдемте с нами на Джаганатха Радха-ятру сейчас. Также здесь, в Шри-Кола-двипе, Шри-Навадвипадхаме, сегодня и проходит маленькая Радха-ятра. Здесь вот как бы деревенские люди, они любят проводить здесь. В прошлом году они проводили, и в этом году тоже они проводят Радха-ятру. Очень искренне вайшнавы, они пригласили меня туда. То есть там один Прабху, который божество Господа Джаганатхи. И в этом году у него появились побольше божества Джаганатхи, очень сладостные. И сегодня они построили сегодня маленькие колесницы. Этот преданный попросил меня прийти, благословить, разбить кокос, что я делал в прошлом году также. И Саджан Махарадж тоже в прошлом году это делал. И он не просит далеко пройти с ним, просто немножечко. Это должно где-то начаться примерно в 4:30. Мы посмотрим, как Господь Джаганатх, он решит, он дождь пошлет или нет. То есть это большая мистерия. Господь Джаганатх знает точно, что произойдет, но мы должны подождать и увидеть, что произойдет.
Okay, now, so, you know, the 13th chapter of Madhya Lila,
мы будем читать Мадья Лилу, Шри Чайтанья Чаритамриту Мадхя. Там описание Радха-ятры, фестиваля. То есть это там начинается в этой главе. Есть две главные главы Мадья Лилы. То есть рассказывается о танце Махапрабху. До того момента, как приносили разные подношения Господу Джаганатхи. И там Махапрабху пошел в сад, и там произошла вся прекрасная лила Махараджа Пратапарудри и воспевание Гопи-гиты. Все спутники, они лежали на различных деревьях. После этого Радха-ятра, она вернулась. И также есть описание о том, какие настроения Махапрабху имел, когда он воспевал и танцевал. И если кто-то не знает, не понимает настроение Махапрабху, его танцев напротив Господа Джаганатхи, тогда они на самом деле не вошли в Джаганатха-ятру. Я читала вчера о том, какие внешние и внутренние настроения присутствуют на Радха-ятре. тот, кто находится в линии Гаудия, Сарасват, Рупа Нуга линии, они понимают, что Махапрабху, его настроение, которое он испытывает на своей Шримати Радхаке на Курукшетре, и она хочет вернуть Кришну назад. Там прекраснейшее объяснение Шрила Кришны Госвами Махарадж, он объяснял шлоки одну за другой, как это происходило. Кавирадж Госвами, он говорил о том, как мы вопрос задали Махапрабху сам. В общем, Шрила Бхарати Махарадж, он сказал, что внешне вы не должны принимать то, что не очень поняла.
Can possibly now suggest that Krishna should again return. Their whole mood is that he's here for good. That's all there is to it. We got him now. All of you go away. And actually that's exemplified in the chapter in Srimad Bhagavatam where Krishna becomes sick.
В Шримад Бхагаватам рассказывается о том, когда Кришна, он заболел, и все гопи, они были как на Курукшетре, запуталась. The experience that he had one time, sitting in front of Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, perhaps it was at Kurukshetra, where they were having the exhibitions, the diorama exhibitions, extremely successful. Yeah. But Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, he was expressing the moods of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he was saying that, those who want to be in Vrindavan, that is the place for shallow thinkers. So the Sridhar Maharaj said he was, what did I just hear him say? Prabhupada? Shallow thinkers? Up till now he's always been saying that this is the highest place, this is the Leela of Radha and Krishna. But then Srila Prabhupada explained that Bhaktivinoda Thakur has told, I want to construct a bhajan kutir at Kurukshetra. В общем, однажды Шрила Бхактивиданта Прабхупада, он сказал о том, что нахождение во Вриндаване не является целью, местом нахождения. И Шрила Бхактивиданта Госвами Махарадж, он удивился, это как, то есть они хотели построить, Шрила Бхактивиданта Тхакур сказал, что я хотел построить баджан кутир на Курукшетре.
Of vegetables in a basket on his head. Forget if that was here in Navadvip or at his native home. But anyway, he was experiencing how, as he got closer, it got heavier. And he got closer and it got heavier and heavier. And he got very close and it was almost intolerable, unbearable. And when he finally got to the doorstep, he went and put it down. So he said, this is how Srimati Radhika felt. This extreme separation from Krishna was intolerable. The only way by which she could tolerate and and somehow or other undergo that meeting with Krishna was by the service of her manjaris and her sakhis. So therefore Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, I want to go to Kurukshetra. Why? Because when the need is the most extreme, when the need is the most extreme, the reward is the greatest. So just see the internal moods of our acharyas. So we're going to try today.
Мы попытаемся сегодня, на самом деле это займет несколько часов, покрыть вот эти все главы. Мы посмотрим, насколько далеко мы сможем зайти.
Between, I can't hear you. Maybe you can use the mic.
Yeah, no, I'm actually, I don't have a statement. I was more a question. But as far as I remember, I think there is a bit of a difference of opinion between Srila Gurudev and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur on this point about Mahaprabhu, like the mood of returning.
Yeah.
And which I don't have any problems with, because when it comes to us, there can always be difference.
Never have any problem in such personalities have a difference of opinion.
Yes, and also when it comes to us, there's lots of room for.
Yes, exactly.
This isn't like a template. But so I think I remember Gurudev saying that Mahaprabhu, even though it was the return to Rak, that he was bringing Jagannath back to. But still Mahaprabhu was absorbed in the mood that he was bringing Krishna to the
Yes, that's correct. Actually, Srila Bharati Maharaj did say that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the Katha. I'm glad you pointed that out. Mahaprabhu's mood is that.
Yeah. And when Mahaprabhu sees the ocean, he sees Yamuna, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, it doesn't take much to get Mahaprabhu to...
Yes. All right, so we're beginning this narration. I'm just reading the very short summary of this chapter, ecstatic dancing of the Lord at Rath Yatra. So a summary of this chapter is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Prabha Bhashya as follows. After bathing early in the morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the deities, Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra, get aboard their 3 cars. This function is called Pandu Vijay. At that time, King Prataparudra took a broom with a golden handle and he began to cleanse the road. Lord Jagannath took permission from who? Who did Lord Jagannath take permission from to go on this excursion? Huh? Took permission from the goddess of fortune. And then he started in the car for the Gundicha temple. But that's coming after 5 days, where she says, I've had it. He said he's going to be back in 1 or 2 days. I'm going to get him. Hera Panchami. No, I've never been there for that. Have you? Do they still do a drama?
It's when I only went one time, and it started at around 11 p.m. I think, or maybe it's midnight.
Oh, really? So late?
Yeah. So they run and with is it Imla maybe? I don't know. Anyways, Lakshmi.
Carrying on the palanquin.
Yeah. Carrying on the palanquin.
It says Lakshmi in it.
Okay, so Lakshmi Devi.
Yeah.
And they run the whole way. And they stop and they have a little trumpet,
главу, это Матхия Лила, глава 13. Шри Гурудев говорил, что, совершив ранним утром омовение, Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху отправился посмотреть, как божества Джаганнатхи, Баладевы и Субхадры восходят на своей колеснице. Эта церемония именуется Панду Виджая. Во время этой церемонии царь Прабхадрундра взял метлу золотую рукоятью и начал подметать дорогу перед Господом. А потом Джаганатха спросил позволения богини процветания и поехал на колеснице в храм Гундича.
And Gurudev says actually that conversation is practically the highest in the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita. You know? So yeah, Mahaprabhu, he was really enjoying this, and he was quite amused because he said, "What kind of man is this? I've not heard of such kind of man, where the heroine becomes so wants to exhibit all of her powers and strength and conquer over her husband like that." You know? Okay, so Lord Jagannath took permission from the goddess of fortune, and then he started in the car
Господь
with the
Джаганатха
Gundisha
спросил
temple.
позволения богини процветания и
Now
поехал
the
на
road
колеснице
to
в
the
храм
temple
Гундича. И так
led
дорога
along a
пролегала по
broad sandy
широкому
beach.
песчаному океану,
See, like in those
океанскому
days, there
берегу.
weren't shops and everything like that,
Смотрите, в эти дни там
shopping
сейчас
malls.
магазины.
But the road to the temple led along a broad sandy beach, and on both sides of the road were residential quarters, houses,
По обе
and
стороны
gardens.
стояли дома и были разбиты сады.
Along that road, the servants called Gaudas, they began to pull the cars.
По этой
Sri
дороге
Chaitanya
служители
Mahaprabhu
божественные
divided his
гаудами
Sankirtan
тянули
party into 7
колесницы.
divisions, and with 2 mridangas in each division, there were altogether 14 mridangas. While
Шри Махапрабху разделил своих последователей на 7 групп санкиртанов. В каждой группе было по 2 мриданги. Таким образом, все 14 всего было 14 мриданг. Во время киртана Шри Махапрабху стал проявлять разнообразные признаки экстаза.
Then the devotees offered the deity simple food, and at this time in the nearby garden,
обменивались
Sri Chaitanya
духовными
Mahaprabhu and his
эмоциями. Когда
devotees
колесницы
rest
достигли
from
места,
dancing.
называющим Балаганди, божества стали подносить разные блюда. А сочетание Махапрабху и его преданные в это время решили немного отдохнуть от танца недалеко в саду. Так всегда первый текст, он небольшое вступление в главе. Санскритский текст, он составлен, говорят, Свами Махараджа. Сейчас идет первый стих 13 главы. Слава Верховной Личности Бога, Шри Кришна Чайтанья, который танцевал перед колесницей Шри Джаганатхи. Танец этот не только поверг в изумление всю Вселенную, но поразил даже самого Господа Джаганатху.
Jaya Jaya, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shrota Gana Shuna Koro Ekman, Rata Yatrai Nritya Prabhu Parama Mohan. All glories to the listeners of Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Please hear the description of the dancing of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at the Rath Yatra festival. His dancing is very enchanting.
Слава слушателям Шри Чайтанья Чаритамрити. Сейчас вы знаете о том, как Господь Чайтанья Махапрабху танцевал на празднике Радха-ятры. Его танец пленил сердца всех. Кто видел его, пожалуйста, слушайте о нем с неотрывным вниманием. На следующий день Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху и его приближенные встали еще до рассвета и тщательно совершили утреннее омовение. После этого Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху отправился вместе с своими ближайшими последователями посмотреть на церемонию Пандавиджая. Во время этой церемонии Господь Джаганатха покидает свой трон и восходит на колесницу. Царь Прабхупаруджа, присутствующий там со своей свитой, сам позаботился о том, чтобы церемонию Пандавиджая могли увидеть все спутники Шри Чайтаньи Махапрабху. Вы знаете, я смотрела несколько раз живое видео. что как бы царь сходил на колесницу. У него не было, он не около колесницы подметал, а на саму колесницу. Я как бы думаю, что Махарадж, он подметал около колесницы.
So, Advaita Nitaya Adi Sange Bhaktagan Suke Mahaprabhu Deke Ishvara Gaman. Шри Чайтанья
Махапрабху и самые близкие его слуги Адвайта Ачарья, Нитянанда Прабху и другие с большим удовольствием наблюдали за тем, как Господь Джаганатха начинает Радха-ятру.
The very strongly built dayatas, the carriers of the Jagannath deity, were as powerful as drunken elephants.
Силачи дайты были могучи, как пьяные совы. Они на руках перенесли Господа Джаганатху с трона на колесницу. И здесь целый комментарий о том, как различные слуги в различных линиях были. From the Shabaras, known as the whole story of the deity Nilamadava. Вся история о Ниламадаве далее идет.
Yes. So because the deities were taken from the Shabaras, all the Shabara devotees were elevated to the position of Dayatas.
Так, неся божество Господь Джаганатха, одни дайты держали его за плечи, а другие за лотосные стопы. Вы можете сейчас посмотреть это, как вот сейчас происходит. Сейчас где-то 200 дайтов, они окружают его, как просто куча рук. Как будто сотни рук, они толкают его, они хотят послушать Господа Джаганатхи. Неся Господа Джаганатхи, одни дайты держали его за плечи, а другие за лотосные стопы. Господь Джаганатху обвязали за талию прочной толстой веревкой с шелком. Взявшись за нее с обоих концов, дайты потянули божество.
Were spread out from the throne to the car, and the heavy deity of Lord Jagannath was carried from one pillow-like pad to the next by the Dayatas. Then, while the Dayatas carried the heavy Jagannath deity from one pad to the next, some of the pads
лопались, и бата из них разлеталась во все стороны.
Господь
Джаганатха, опора Вселенной, кто способен перенести его с одного места на другое, Господь двигается по собственной воле, являя таким образом свои игры. Итак, если вы думаете, что вы двигаете его, нет, на самом деле вы очень неправы, он двигает вас. Когда Господа тянули от трона колесницы, играли разные инструменты, создавая оглушительный шум. И Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху восклицал: «Манима!» Но его невозможно было расслышать, потому что все вот эти вот музыкальные инструменты были громкие. Так, это манима, это относится к уважительная, как форма уважительная Париси. Так пока Господа переносили с трона на колесницу, царь Пратапаруджи лично служил Господу, подметая перед ним дорогу метлой с золотой рукоятью. То есть это вот традиция. То есть когда он так царь был очень
The king sprinkled the road with sandalwood-scented water.
Царь также окроплял дорогу водой, сандаловым маслом, хотя по природу занимал царский трон. Ради Господа Джаганнатхи он готов был выполнять самую простую работу. Царь был очень многочисленным и всеми уважаемым, но при этом не гнушился черной работы ради Господа. Вот почему он стал достоин его милости.
Mahaprabhu Sukha Pailo se seva dekite, Mahaprabhu Kripa Hoilo se seva hoite, and upon seeing the king engaged
каким служением занят царь, Шричитани Махапрабху остался очень доволен. Одним этим служением царь снискал милость Господа Чайтаньи. Прабхупада цитирует 14 главу Шримад Бхагаватам, где Господь Prasada Leshanu Grihita Evahi Janati Tattvam Bhagavan Mahimno Nachanya Ekopi Chiram Vichinvan. This means unless one receives the mercy of the Lord, he cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead or engage in his devotional service. Prabhupada is saying that a devotee who has received even a small fraction of the mercy of the Lord can understand him. Others may engage in theoretical speculations who understand the Lord, but they cannot know anything about him. способен тот, на которого достался хотя бы крупица его милости. Другие могут пытаться понять Господа размышлением, но так как они ничего о нем не знают, хотя Махараджа Прабхупада очень хотел встретиться с Чайтаньей Махапрабху, Господь отказал ему, но когда Чайтанья Махапрабху видел, с каким смирением царь служил Господу Джаганнатхе, то это ему очень понравилось. Так, царь удостоился милости Шри Чайтаньи Махапрабху, преданный, который признает Господа Шри Чайтанью Махапрабху Гуру всей вселенной, а Господь Джаганнатху, Верховной Личности Бога, Кришна обретает милость Кришны и Гуру одновременно. И это Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху говорит об этом в своих наставлениях Шри Рупа Госвами. Семя преданного служения прорастает и становится трансцендентной лианой, которая в концов достигает лотосной стопы Господа в духовном небе. Семя это люди обретают по милости Господа и Гуру. По милости Господа мы встречаем истинного Гуру, а по милости Гуру получаем возможность преданно служить Господу. Преданное служение, наука бхакти-йоги позволяет перенестись из материального мира в мир духовный. Вы хотите пойти? Только один путь — бхакти. Убранство колесницы повергло всех в изумление. Она казалась только что отлитой из золота и высокой, как гора Сумеру. И здесь вот маленький комментарий. В 1973 году пышное празднование Радха-ятры прошло в Англии, в Лондоне. Во время этого праздника колесница проехала по Трафальгарской площади. Ежедневная лондонская газета «Гардиан» разместила на самом видном месте фотографию с заголовком «Радха-ятра Искон соперничает с колонной Нильсона и Трафальгарской площади». Колонну Нильсона видно издалека. Она представляет собой грандиозный памятник лорду Нильсону, а также жителям Пури, которые уподобляли колесницу Радха-ятры горы Сумеру. Лондонцы сочли, что колесница соперничает с памятником Нельсону. Убранство колесницы состояло из блестящих зеркал и сотен чамар, белых опалахала из хвоста каяка. Венчала колесницу безукоризненно чистый купол балдахин с красивым флагом. Колесница была драпирована шелковой тканью и украшена различными изображениями. Звенели многочисленные колокола, гонги и мелкие колокольчики. Чтобы начать Радха-ятру, Господь Джаганнатха взошел на одну колесницу, а его сестра Субхадра и старший брат Баларама на две другие. Итак, 15, заручившись согласием богини Процветали, Господь отправился на прогулку в колеснице Радхи, чтобы порадовать преданных своими играми. Там еще было сказано про 15 дней. В переводе не вижу. То есть каждый год божество Господа перекрашивают. Но в Навалкалевару новое тело Джаганнатхи. То есть я не знаю, сколько это занимает месяцев, сколько месяцев занимает найти дерево, изваять как бы Господа Джаганнатху. Итак, заручившись согласием богини Процветания, Господь отправился на прогулку в колеснице Радхи, чтобы порадовать преданных своими играми. Шрила Бхактиведанта Сарасвати Прабхупада Тхакур в связи с этим отмечает, что Господь Джаганнатха, как и подобает идеальному мужу, провел 15 дней наедине со своей супругой, верховной богиней Процветания. Однако потом Господь пожелал покинуть место уединения, чтобы доставить удовольствие своим преданным. Господь наслаждался двумя способами, которые называются свакия и паракия. Любовь Господа в свакия расе подчиняется правилам существующего араки, где у Господа множество жен. Но во Вриндаване Господь связан любовью отношением не с законными женами, а с подругами горы. Любовные отношения с горой носят название паракия раса. Господь Джаганнатха оставляет покои, в которых он наслаждается обществом верховной богини Процветания в отношениях с паракия расы и отправляется во Вриндаван, чтобы насладиться паракия расой. Поэтому Бхактиведанта Сарасвати Тхакур напоминает нам, что наслаждение, которое Господа доставляет паракия раса, превосходит наслаждение доставления паракия расы. В материальном мире паракия раса, небрачные любовные отношения крайне присудительны, однако в духовном мире такие любовные отношения приносят высшее наслаждение. Все в материальном мире представляет собой отражение духовного, однако отражение это искаженное отношение, существующее в духовном мире, невозможно понять на основе материального опыта. Вот почему мирские ученые и пустословы дают неверное толкование играм Господа и Гопи. Паракия раса в духовном мире можно обсуждать только тем, кто достиг высот чистого преданного служения. Паракия раса в духовном мире нельзя ставить на один уровень с паракия расой в материальном. Первая подобна золоту, а вторая железу. Разница между ними столь велика, что они даже не могут подлежать сравнению. Как следующий человек без труда отличает золото от железа, так и имеющий должное понимание легко отличает трансцендентные лилы духовного мира от материальных поступков. Итак, вся дорога была усыпана мелким белым песком, что передавала ей сходство с берегом Ямуны, а сады по обочинам дороги казались садами Вриндавана. Господь Джаганатха восседал на колеснице, смотря по сторонам, и сердце его ликовало. Слуг, тянувших колесницу, называют гоудами. Они делали это с огромным удовольствием, но колесница то ехала быстро, то замедляла свой ход. Временами колесница останавливалась, и ее никак не старались, не могли сдвинуть с места. А по сути, колесницей управляла лишь воля Господа, а не усилия обычных людей. Разве это не доказательство? Это большое доказательство. Даже слоны, они могли сдвинуть. Но когда Господь Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху пришел и коснулся головой его, то он побежал просто. И поэтому мы должны понять, что колесница двигается только по воле Господа Джаганатхи. Никто не может ее сдвинуть. Итак, затем во время одной из таких остановок Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху собрал всех своих преданных, сам украсил их сандаловой пастой, надел на них гирлянды. Когда Падманабха Бхарати получил гирлянды и сандаловую пасту из рук Шри Чайтаньи Махапрабху, их трансцендентное блаженство возросло. Адвайта Ачарья, Нитянанда Прабху тоже испытали огромное удовольствие от прикосновения трансцендентной руки Шри Чайтаньи Махапрабху. Господь также принес гирлянды и сандаловую пасту певцам, которые вели санкиртану. Главным из них был Сварупа Дамодара и Шриваса Такур. Всего было 4 группы исполнителей киртана, вместе насчитывающие 24 певца. В каждой группе также было по 2 игрока на мриданге, что составляло еще 8 человек. То есть 6 плюс 2. Когда образовались 4 группы, Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху, немного поразмыслив, разделил певцов. Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху велел Нитянанде Прабху, Адвайте Ачарье, Харидасу Такуру и Бхакрешвару Пандиту стать танцорами в своих группах. Бхакрешвара Пандит ки джай. Все они невероятные танцоры. Только представьте, что какой Харидас Такур танцор. Сваруб Дамодар был поставлен во главе первой группы. Он получил 5 помощников, которые должны были подпевать ему. Этими 5 певцами, которые поручили вторых Сварубе Дамодаре, Пандиту были Дамодара Пандит, Нарайна, Говиндадата, Рагава Пандит и Шри Говиндадананда. В этой группе Господь велел танцевать Адвайта Ачарья, затем он собрал другую группу, поставил во главе Шриваса Такура. Так Шрила Прабхупада говорил, что в первой группе солировал Дамодар Сварупа, повторил ему Дамодара Пандит, Нарайна, Говиндадата, Рагава Пандит и Говиндадас. Танцевала в этой группе Шри Адванта Ачарья, затем собрали другую группу, в которой вел киртан Шривас Такур. Эти певцами, которые подпевали Шривасе Такуру, были Гандавидас, Харидас, Шримана, Шубананда и Шри Рама Пандит, а танцевал в ней Шри Нитянанда Прабху. В следующую группу вошли Васудева, Гопинатха и Мурари. Они подпевали Мукунди, который был главным певцом. К этому хору присоединились еще 2, Шриканда и Валаба. Танцевали в этой группе старший Харидас Такур. Господь собрал еще одну группу и назвал неведущим Говинда Гоша. Его пению второй младший Харидас, Вишнудас и Рагава. Подпевать к этой группе должны подпевать к этой группе также подсоединились 2 брата Мадхава Гоша, Васудева Гоша танцевал в ней Бакешвара Пандит. Была также группа Санкиртана из деревни Кулингарма. В этой группе танцевали Рамананда и Сатьяраджа. Собралась еще одна группа из Шантипура. Ее организовал Адвайтачарья. Танцевала в ней Ачанда, а остальные пели. И, наконец, была группа, состоящая из жителей Канды. Они пели в таком месте. А в этой группе танцорами были Нарахари, Прабху и Рагунандана. 4 группы пели и танцевали перед Господом Джаганатхой, а 2 другие по обе стороны от него. Еще одна группа пела сзади. Итак, всего было 7 групп Санкиртаны, в каждой 2 барабанщиков. Таким образом, одновременно звучало 14 барабанов. Их оглушительный бой приводил преданных в неистовство, безумство. Все вайшнавы напоминали гряду облаков. Когда они в великом экстазе пели святые имена, слезы дождем лились из их глаз. Санкиртана огласила все 3 мира. И не было слышно никаких других звуков и никакой музыки, кроме Санкиртана. Господь Чайтанья Махапрабху переходил от одной группы к другой, воспевая святое имя Хари, Хари. Воздев руки, он восклицал: «Слава Господу Джаганатхе!» Затем Господь Чайтанья Махапрабху продемонстрировал еще одну сверхъестественную способность вести свои игры во всех 7 группах одновременно. Каждый говорил: Господь Чайтанья Махапрабху находится в моей группе. На самом деле он больше никуда не уходит. Он дает свою милость только нам. В действительности никто не замечал действия сверхъестественной силы Господа. Понимали происходящее лишь самые доверенные, преданные, чье служение Господу было абсолютно чистым и беспримесным. Господь Джаганатхе так понравилось Санкиртана, что он даже остановил колесницу, чтобы посмотреть на происходящее. Затем Санкиртана глубоко поразила и царя Пратапарудру. Охваченный экстатической любовью к Кришне, он замер и на месте. Когда царь поведал Кашимишре о величии Господа, Кашимишра ответил: «О царь, удача твоя безгранична». Царь и Сарвабхаума Бхаттачарья понимали, что делает Господь Чайтанья Махапрабху, однако никто больше не замечал чудес, которые он творил. Понять это может только лишь тот, кто снискал благосклонность Господа. Без его благосклонности даже Брахма и прочие полубоги не способны ничего понять. Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху остался очень доволен, увидев, что царь готов выполнить даже такую грязную работу, как подметание дороги. Так за свое смирение царь удостоился милости Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху. Именно поэтому ему открылась тайна деяний Господа Чайтаньи. И в комментарии Прабхупада говорит: эта тайна деяний Господа Чайтаньи объясняется Шрилой Бхактивидантой Сарасвати Тхакуром. И танец и пение Шри Чайтаньи Махапрабху поразили Господа Джаганатху. Он даже остановил свою колесницу, чтобы посмотреть на этот танец. Только Господь Чайтанья Махапрабху стал танцевать таким мистическим образом, что сумел доставить Господу Джаганатхе удовольствие. И тот, кто танцевал, и тот, кто наблюдал за танцем, были одной верховной личностью. Просто Господь единый и одновременно существующий во множестве проявлений пожелал показать разнообразие своих игр. Именно этим объясняется его загадочное поведение. По милости Шри Чайтаньи Махапрабху царь понял, как Господь Джаганатха и Господь Чайтанья наслаждаются поведением друг друга. Другой загадкой было одновременное присутствие Шри Чайтаньи Махапрабху в 7 группах. Милостью Шри Чайтаньи Махапрабху царь разгадал и эту загадку.
So, I'm going to switch off with you during this reading because it's quite long. Yes.
So the 7 groups are only around one Bhaktivinoda.
Yes.
Итак, 7 групп это только
Four in the front, two on each side,
окружали
one in the
Господа
rear.
Джаганнатху.
You know, in Tota Gopinath temple,
Знаете, в храме Тата
there's some very,
Гопинатха
very beautiful
очень
paintings on the walls
прекрасное
there.
изображение на стенах есть.
And on one very
И
big wall,
на одной очень большой стене там они изображены Радха-ятра и танец Махапрабху. То есть вы знаете, да, Тата Гопинат? Тата Гопинат. То есть и там показывается, как Господь Чайтанья танцевал во всех 7 группах. Итак, текст 61 сейчас. Хотя Господь Чайтанья отказался царю от встречи, косвенно он проявил на царя безмолчную милость. Кто способен понять, как действует внутренняя энергия Шри Чайтаньи Махапрабху? Беспричинная милость, которую Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху пролил на царя, повергла в изумление двух таких великих преданных, как Сарвабхаума Бхаттачарья и Кашемиша. Мне нужно идти с просадом. Харе Кришна.
The very word king is repugnant to one who is in the renounced order of life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refused to see the king, but indirectly, by the Lord's causeless mercy, the king was able to understand the Lord's mysterious activities. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities were exhibited sometimes to reveal him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and sometimes to show him as a devotee. Both kinds of activities are mysterious and appreciated only by pure devotees. The two great personalities, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Kashi Mishra, saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's causeless mercy upon the king. They were astonished. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his pastimes for some time in this way. He personally sang and induced his personal associates to dance. According to his need, the Lord sometimes exhibited one form and sometimes many. This was being executed by his internal potency. Indeed, the Supreme Personality of Godhead forgot himself in the course of his transcendental pastimes, but his internal potency, his Lila Shakti, knowing the intentions of the Lord, made all arrangements. And there's a purport. Just as Lord Shri Krishna formally performs the Ras Lila dance and other pastimes at Vrindavan, Lord Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed uncommon pastimes moment after moment. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dancing before the Rath-yatra car could be perceived only by pure devotees. Others could not understand. Descriptions of Lord Krishna's uncommon dancing can be found in the revealed scripture Shrimad Bhagavatam. Purport. Lord Shri Krishna expanded himself into many forms while engaged in the Ras Lila dance, and he also expanded himself when he married 16,000 wives in Dwarka. The same process was adopted by Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he expanded himself into 7 forms to dance in each and every group of the Sankirtan party. These expansions were appreciated by pure devotees, including King Prataparudra. Although for reasons of external formality, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refused to sing King Prataparudra because he was a king, King Prataparudra became one of the Lord's most confidential devotees by the Lord's special mercy upon him. The king could see Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu simultaneously present in all 7 groups. As confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, one cannot see the expansions of the transcendental forms of the Lord unless one is a pure devotee of the Lord. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced in great jubilation and inundated all the people with waves of ecstatic love. Thus, Lord Jagannath mounted his car, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inspired all his devotees to dance in front of it. Now, please hear about Lord Jagannath's going to the Gundicha temple while Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced before the Rath car. The Lord performed kirtan for some time, and through his own endeavor, inspired all the devotees to dance. When the Lord himself wanted to dance, all 7 groups combined together. The Lord's devotees, including Srivas, Ramai, Raghu, Govinda, Mukunda, Haridas, Govindananda, Madhava, and Govinda, all combined together. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu desired to jump high while dancing, he placed these 9 people in the charge of Sarup Damodar. These devotees, Sarup Damodar and the devotees in his charge, sang along with the Lord, and they also ran beside him. All the other groups of men also sang. Offering obeisances to the Lord with folded hands, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu raised his face toward Jagannath and prayed as follows.
Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagannathaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha.
Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Krishna, who is the worshipable deity for all brahminical men, who is the well-wisher of cows and brahmanas, and who is always benefiting the whole world. I offer my repeated obeisances to the personality of Godhead, known as Krishna and Govinda. This is a quotation from the Vishnu Purana, 1965.
Jayati Jayati Devo Devaki Nandano So Jayati Jayati Krishna Vrishni Vamsha Pradipa Jayati Jayati Megha Shyamala Komalango Jayati Jayati Prithvi Bharanasho Mukunda.
All glories unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as the Son of Devaki. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as the light of the dynasty of Vrishni. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose bodily luster is like that of a new cloud, and whose body is as soft as a lotus flower. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appeared on this planet to deliver the world from the burden of demons, and who can offer liberation to everyone. This is a verse from the Mukunda Mala 3, verse 3.
Jayati Janani Vaso Devaki Janmavado Yaruvara Parishad Svaya Dorvir Asyanna Dharmam Stirachara Krishnanatha Susmita Shri Mukena Vrajapura Vanitana Vardhayan Kamadevam.
Lord Shri Krishna is he who is known as Jananivas, the ultimate resort of all living entities, and who is also known as Devaki Nandana, or Yashodanandana, the son of Devaki and Yashoda. He is the guide of the Yadu dynasty, and with his mighty arms he kills everything inauspicious, as well as every man who is impious. By his presence he destroys all things inauspicious for all living entities, moving and inert. His blissful smiling face always increases the lusty desires of the gopis of Vrindavan. May he be all glorious and happy. This is a quotation from Shrimad Bhagavatam 10:1948.
In Gurudev's book, he really goes into this verse in great depth in his Rath Yatra book, each word and all of that. But we'll continue.
something I think is interesting is Srila Prabhupada, he writes Yashodananda in here, even though it says Devaki Janmavada, Srila Prabhupada writes Yashodananda.
You mean in where? In the...
Like in the Sanskrit, it doesn't really say.
Yeah.
It just says Devaki Janmavada.
Right.
But Srila Prabhupada writes Yashodananda in the purports.
In the purports. Oh, yeah.
Not on the purports, I mean in the translation. He says Devaki Nandan or Yashodananda.
Or Yashodananda, right. But we also heard that Yashoda Devi is also known as Devaki.
Exactly.
Naham viprona chanarapatir napi vaishyona shudra naham varniya chagrihapatir no manosto yatirva kintu progyam nikilat paramananda purnamritabde gopi bhartu padakamalayor dasa dasa nudasa.
I am not a Brahmana, I am not a Kshatriya, I am not a Vaishya or a Sudra, nor am I a Brahmachari, a householder, a Vanaprastha, or a sannyasi. I identify myself only as the servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. He is like an ocean of nectar, and he is the cause of universal transcendental bliss. He is always existing with brilliance. This is verse 74 from the Padmabhava, an anthology of verses compiled by Srila Rupa Goswami. Having recited all these verses from scripture, the Lord again offered his obeisances, and all the devotees, with folded hands, also offered prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced and jumped high, roaring like thunder and moving in a circle like a wheel, he appeared like a circling firebrand.
Now, Gurudev, whenever he would describe this, he would use that exact same example of a firebrand. Yeah.
There's an article in one of the Rays of the Harmonists today. It's all about Mahaprabhu's dancing, and he really gets into this.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, go ahead.
If a burning cinder of a firebrand is whirled about very swiftly, it gives the appearance of a circle of fire. This is called an alata akha, or an alata chakra, a firebrand circle. This whole circle is not actually made of fire, but is a single fire in motion. Similarly, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a single personality, but when he danced and jumped high in a circle, he appeared like the alata chakra. Wherever Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stepped while dancing, the whole earth with its hills and seas appeared to tilt. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced, he displayed various blissful transcendental changes in his body. Sometimes he appeared as though stunned. Sometimes the hairs of his body stood on end. Sometimes he perspired, cried, trembled, and changed color. And sometimes he exhibited symptoms of helplessness, pride, exuberance, and humility. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell down with a crash while dancing, he would roll on the ground. At such times, it appeared that a golden mountain was rolling upon the ground. Nityananda Prabhu would stretch out his two hands and try to catch the Lord when he was running here and there. Advaita Acharya would walk behind the Lord and loudly chant, Hari Bol, again and again. Just to check the crowds from coming too near the Lord, the devotees formed three circles. The first circle was guided by Nityananda Prabhu, who was Balaram himself, the possessor of great strength. All the devotees headed by Kashishwar and Govinda linked hands and formed a second circle around the Lord. Maharaja Prataparudra and his personal assistants formed a third circle around the two inner circles, just to check the crowds from coming too near. With his hands on the shoulders of Harichandra, King Prataparudra could see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dancing, and the king felt great ecstasy. While the king beheld the dancing, Srivas Thakur, standing in front of him, became ecstatic as he saw the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Seeing Srivas Thakur standing before the king, Harichandra touched Srivas with his hand and requested him to step aside.
Wrong move.
Absorbed in watching Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dance, Srivas Thakur could not understand why he is being touched and pushed. After he was pushed again and again, he became angry. Srivas Thakur slapped Harichandra to stop him from pushing him. In turn, this made Harichandra angry. As the angered Harichandra was about to speak to Srivas Thakur, Prataparudra Mahārāj personally stopped him.
But Harichandra is like a military general. You know? But Maharaj Prataparudra stopped Harichandra.
King Prataparudra said, "You are very fortunate, for you have been graced by the touch of Srivas Thakur. I am not so fortunate. You should feel obliged to him." Everyone is astonished by the dancing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and even Lord Jagannath became extremely happy to see him. The car came to a complete standstill and remained immobile while Lord, with unblinking eyes, he watched the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The goddess of fortune, Subhadra, and Lord Balaram both felt great happiness and ecstasy within their hearts. Indeed, they were seen smiling at the dancing. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced and jumped high, 8 wonderful transformations indicative of divine ecstasy were seen in his body. All these symptoms were visible simultaneously. His skin erupted with goose pimples, and the hairs of his body stood on end. His body resembled the shingoli, the silk cotton tree, all covered with thorns. Indeed, the people became afraid just to see his teeth chatter, and they even thought that his teeth would fall out. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's whole body flowed with perspiration, and at the same time oozed blood. He made the sounds, Jaja, Gaga, Jaja, Gaga, and a voice choked with ecstasy. Tears came forcefully from the eyes of the Lord, as if from a syringe, and all the people surrounding him became wet. Everyone saw the complexion of his body change from white to pink, so that his luster resembled that of a malika flower. Sometimes he appeared stunned, and sometimes he rolled on the ground. Indeed, sometimes his legs and hands became as hard as dry wood, and he did not move. When the Lord fell to the ground, sometimes his breathing almost stopped. When the devotees saw this, their lives also became very feeble. Water flowed from his eyes, and sometimes through his nostrils, and foam fell from his mouth. These flowings appeared to be torrents of nectar descending from the moon. The foam that fell from the mouth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was taken and drunk by Shubhananda, because he was very fortunate and expert in relishing the mellow of ecstatic love of Krishna.
Krishna prem rasika keval mahabhagyavan.
After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had performed his devastating dance for some time, his mind entered into a mood of ecstatic love. After abandoning the dancing, the Lord ordered Swarup Damodar to sing. Understanding his mind, Swarup Damodar began to sing as follows.
So this verse, Swarup Damodar, is now expressing outwardly what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was inwardly feeling as doing this in public. Generally, this was always done privately with Gambhira. So now he's expressing exactly what Mahaprabhu's mood is, and that we're going to read in the purport that's coming up. So he says the verse, Seto Parananata Painu Jahalagi Madana Dahane Jurikenu Seto Parananata Painu Jahalagi Madana Dahane Jurikenu.
Now I have gained the Lord of my life, in the absence of whom I was being burned by Cupid and was withering away.
So what is this song referring to? Prabhupada is telling us.
This song refers to Srimati Radharani's meeting with Krishna at the holy place of Kurukshetra, where Lord Shri Krishna and his brother and sister came to visit when there was a solar eclipse. It is a song of separation from Krishna. When Radharani met Krishna at Kurukshetra, she remembered his intimate association in Vrindavan, and she thought, now I have gained the Lord of my life. In his absence, I was being burnt by the arrow of Cupid, and thus I was withering away. Now I have my life again. When this refrain was loudly sung by Swarup Damodar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again began rhythmically dancing in transcendental bliss. The car of Lord Jagannath began to move slowly, while the son of Mother Shakshi went ahead and danced in front. While dancing and singing, all the devotees in front of Lord Jagannath kept their eyes on him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the end of the procession with the Sankirtan performers. His eyes and mind fully absorbed in Lord Jagannath, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to play the drama of the song with his two arms. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dramatically enacting the song, he would sometimes fall behind him in the procession. At such times, Lord Jagannath would come to a standstill. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again went forward, Lord Jagannath's car would slowly start again. Thus, there was a sort of competition between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Jagannath in seeing who would lead. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so strong that he made Lord Jagannath wait in his car.
So now this purport is probably the most in-depth purport in this part of this chapter, because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is fully revealing what were all the moods in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's heart.
In his Anubhashya, In his Anubhashya, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur describes the ecstasy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as follows. After giving up the company of the gopis in Vrindavan, Sri Krishna, the son of Maharaja Nanda, engaged in his pastimes at Dwarka. When Krishna went to Kurukshetra with his brother and sister and others from Dwarka, he again met the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha Bhav Duti Subhavita. That is, Krishna himself assuming the part of Srimati Radharani in order to understand Krishna. Lord Jagannath Dev is Krishna, and Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Srimati Radharani. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's leading Lord Jagannath toward the Gundita temple corresponded to Srimati Radharani's leading Krishna toward Vrindavan. Shri Kshetra Jagannath Puri was taken as the kingdom of Dwarka, the place where Krishna enjoys supreme opulence. But he was being led by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Vrindavan, the simple village where all the inhabitants are filled with ecstatic love for Krishna. Shri Kshetra is a place of Aishwarya Lila, just as Vrindavan is the place of Madhurya Lila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's following at the rear of the Rath indicated that Lord Jagannath, Krishna, was forgetting the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Although Krishna neglected the inhabitants of Vrindavan, he could not forget them. Thus, in his opulent Ratha Yatra, he was returning to Vrindavan. In the role of Srimati Radharani, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was examining whether the Lord still remembered the inhabitants of Vrindavan. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell behind the Rath car, Jagannath Dev, Krishna himself, understood the mind of Srimati Radharani. Therefore, Jagannath sometimes fell behind the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to indicate to Srimati Radharani that he had not forgotten. Thus, Lord Jagannath would stop the forward march of the Rath and wait at a standstill. In this way, Lord Jagannath agreed that without the ecstasy of Srimati Radharani, he could not feel satisfied. While Jagannath was thus waiting, Gaurasundar Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his ecstasy of Srimati Radharani, immediately came forward to Krishna. At such times, Lord Jagannath would proceed ahead very slowly. These competitive exchanges were all part of the love affair between Krishna and Srimati Radharani. In that competition between Lord Chaitanya's ecstasy for Jagannath and Jagannath's ecstasy for Srimati Radharani, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emerged successful.
Jai Gauranga, Jai Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki
Jai. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing, his ecstasy changed. Raising his two arms, he began to recite the following verse in a loud voice.
So this following verse, this is the mystery verse. Big mystery verse. And no one could understand except Swarup Damodar Goswami. Why was Mahaprabhu reciting a verse which appeared to be the moods and the feelings of a young lady in her relationship with her husband, and she's remembering, like this is a mundane song, and she's remembering how they met on the bank of a river when they were young, and all of this. This is poetry. But persons were they could not understand why Mahaprabhu was singing such a song. However, there was another personality present when Mahaprabhu recited this verse. Yes. And who was that? Srila Rupa Goswami. So Gurudev used to say, young Rupa Goswami. Young Rupa Goswami. He heard this verse, which nobody else could decipher what were the internal moods of Mahaprabhu. Why was he singing apparently mundane song? So this is not described here, but it's described in another part at the beginning of Bhajan How Rupa Goswami wrote a corresponding verse which actually revealed exactly what Mahaprabhu was thinking in his mind. Because Mahaprabhu in this mundane verse is expressing the mood of a mundane lady heroine in her relationship with her husband, who's now her husband, but she's longing for those sweet moods on the bank of the Reva River, when you stole my heart at that time when we were young. But then Rupa Goswami revealed, who is actually speaking? Srimati Radhika at Kurukshetra. And he's exactly describing how Radhika is seeing Krishna and how now Srimati Radhika is desiring to bring him back to Vrindavan. So we'll read this verse. Yakomarahara eva hivarastha eva chaitra kshapas te chonmilitamalati surabhaya prodha kadambanila Sa chaivasmi tatapi tatra surata vyapara lila vidho reva rodasi vetasi tarutale chetak samutkantate. That very personality who stole away my heart during my youth, he is now again my master. These are the same moonlit nights of the month of Chaitra. The same fragrance of malati flowers is there. The same sweet breezes are blowing from the Kadamba forest. And in our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover. Yet still, my mind is not happy here. I am eager to go back to that place, on the bank of the Reva, under the Vetasi tree. That is my desire. So this is a verse from Rupa Goswami's Padyavali. And then Kaviraj Goswami says, this verse was recited by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again and again, not just once. But for Swarup Damodar, no one else, only Swarup Damodar could understand its meaning. And then Kaviraj Goswami says, I've already explained this verse, but now I shall simply describe it in brief. So he says, formerly all the gopis of Vrindavan were very pleased when they met with Krishna in the holy place of Kurukshetra. And then similarly, after seeing Lord Jagannath, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu awoke with the ecstasy of the gopis. And being absorbed in this ecstasy, he asked Swarup Damodar to sing the refrain. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke thus to Lord Jagannath. You are the same Krishna, and I am the same Radharani, and we are meeting again in the same way that we met in the beginning of our lives. And although we are both the same, my mind is still attracted to Vrindavan Dham. I wish that you will please appear again with your lotus feet in Vrindavan. In Kurukshetra there are crowds of people, there are elephants and horses, also the rattlings of chariots, but in Vrindavan there are flower gardens, and the humming of the bees and the chirping of the birds can be heard. Here at Kurukshetra, you are dressed like a royal prince, accompanied by great warriors, but in Vrindavan, you appear just like an ordinary cowherd boy, accompanied only by your beautiful flute. Here, there is not even a drop of the ocean of transcendental happiness that I enjoyed with you in Vrindavan. And I therefore request you to come to Vrindavan and enjoy pastimes with me. If you do so, my ambition will be fulfilled. So Kaviraj Goswami then says, I've already described in brief Srimati Radharani's statement from Srimad Bhagavatam. So in that ecstatic mood, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited many other verses, but people in general could not understand their meaning. The meaning of those verses was known to Swarup Damodar Goswami, but he did not reveal it. However, Sri Rupa Goswami has broadcast the meaning. And while dancing, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to recite the following verse, which he tasted in the association of Swarup Damodar Goswami. And which verse is this? This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 82, 10th canto, verse 48, where the pastimes at Kurukshetra are being described. Ahushchate nalinanava padara vindam Yogeshwara hridi vichintya magada bodhai samsara kupa patito taranavalam geham jusham apimanas udiyat sadhana. The gopis spoke thus to Krishna. Dear Lord, whose navel is just like a lotus flower, your lotus feet are the only shelter for those who have fallen into the deep well of material existence. Your feet are worshipped and meditated upon by great mystic yogis and highly learned philosophers. We wish that these lotus feet may also be awakened within our hearts, although we are only ordinary persons engaged in household affairs. So this quotation from Shrimad Bhagavatam, the gopis were never interested in karma yoga, in jnana yoga, or dhyana yoga. They were simply interested in bhakti yoga. Unless they were forced, they never liked to meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. Rather, they preferred to take the lotus feet of the Lord and place them on their breasts. Sometimes they regretted that their breasts were so hard, fearing that Krishna might not be very pleased to keep his soft lotus feet there. And when those lotus feet were pricked by the grains of sand in the Vrindavan pasturing ground, the gopis were pained and they began to cry. The gopis wanted to keep Krishna at home always. And in this way their minds were absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Such pure Krishna consciousness can arise only in Vrindavan. Read that again. Such pure Krishna consciousness can arise only in Vrindavan. And thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to explain his own mind, which was saturated in the ecstasy of the gopis. So now comes these beautiful sonnets written by Kaviraj Goswami, where Mahaprabhu is speaking in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So Mahaprabhu says, Anyer hridoy man mor man brindavan mane vane ekakori jani tahan tomar padadvai karaha jadi udo tabe tomar purna kripamani. Speaking in the mood of Srimati Radharani, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, for most people, the mind and the heart are one. But because my mind is never separated from Vrindavan, I consider my mind and Vrindavan to be one. My mind is already Vrindavan. And since you like Vrindavan, will you please place your lotus feet there? I would deem that your full mercy. So Prabhupada's explaining this. He's saying that the mind's activities are thinking, feeling, and willing, by which the mind accepts materially favorable things and rejects the unfavorable. This is the consciousness of people in general. But when one's mind does not accept and reject, but simply becomes fixed on the lotus feet of Krishna, then one's mind becomes as good as Vrindavan. Wherever Krishna is, there also are Srimati Radharani, the gopis, the cowherd boys, and all the other inhabitants of Vrindavan. So, thus, as soon as one fixes Krishna in his mind becomes identical with Vrindavan. In other words, one's mind is completely free of all material desires and is engaged only in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one always lives in Vrindavan and nowhere else. Prananath Shunamor Satya Nivedan Vraja amar sadam taha tomar sangama napai rahe jivan. My dear Lord, kindly hear my true submission. My home is Vrindavan, and I wish your association there. But if I do not get it, then it will be very difficult for me to keep my life. You can take over from here for both.
Only when the mind is free from designations can one desire the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The mind must have some occupation. If a person is to be free of material things, his mind cannot be vacant. There must be subject matters for thinking, feeling, and willing. Unless one's mind is filled with thoughts of Krishna, feelings for Krishna, and a desire to serve Krishna, the mind will be filled with material activities. Those who have given up all material activities and have ceased thinking of them should always retain the ambition to think of Krishna. Without Krishna, one cannot live, just as a person cannot live without some enjoyment for his mind.
You can just read the English.
My dear Krishna, formerly, My dear Krishna, formerly, when you were staying in Mathura, you sent Uddhav to teach me speculative knowledge and mystic yoga. Now, you yourself are speaking the same thing, but my mind does not accept it. There is no place in my mind for Jnana Yoga or Dhyana Yoga. Although you know me very well, you are still instructing me in Jnana Yoga and Dhyana Yoga. It is not right for you to do so.
So Radharani is now chastising Krishna.
Next verse.
Okay.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued. I would like to withdraw my consciousness from you and engage it in material activities. But even though I try, I cannot do so. I am naturally inclined to you only. Your instructions for me to meditate on you are therefore simply ludicrous. In this way, you are killing me. It is not very good for you to think of me as a candidate for your instructions.
Read a little purport.
Okay, Srila Rupa Goswami says in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 11th verse from the beginning, Anya Vilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Jnanavritam Anupurvena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhakti Ruttama. For a pure devotee, there is no scope for indulgence in mystic yoga practice or the cultivation of speculative philosophy. It is indeed impossible for a pure devotee to engage his mind in such unwanted activities. Even if a pure devotee wanted to, his mind would not allow him to do so. That is the characteristic of a pure devotee. He is transcendental to all fruitive activity, speculative philosophy, and mystic yoga meditation. The gopis therefore express themselves as follows. The gopis are not like mystic yogis. They will never be satisfied simply by meditating on your lotus feet and imitating the so-called yogis. Teaching the gopis about meditation is another kind of duplicity. When they are instructed to undergo mystic yoga practice, they are not at all satisfied. On the contrary, they become more and more angry with you.
Next verse.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued. The gopis have fallen into the great ocean of separation and are being devoured by the timid gillfish of their ambition to serve you. The gopis are to be delivered from the mouths of these timid gillfish, for they are pure devotees. Since they have no material conception of life, why should they aspire for liberation? The gopis do not want that liberation The gopis do not want that liberation desired by yogis and gyanis, for they are already liberated from the ocean of material existence. It is amazing that you have forgotten the lands of Vrindavan. And how is it that you have forgotten your father, your mother, and friends? How have you forgotten Govardhan Hill, the bank of the Yamuna, and the forest where you enjoyed the Ras Leela dance? Krishna, you are certainly a refined gentleman with all good qualities. You are well-behaved, soft-hearted, and merciful. I know that there is not even a tinge of fault to be found in you. Yet, your mind does not even remember the inhabitants of Vrindavan. This is only my misfortune, and nothing else. I do not care for my personal unhappiness, but when I see the morose face of Mother Yashoda and the hearts of all the inhabitants of Vrindavan breaking because of you, I wonder whether you want to kill them all, or do you want to enliven them by coming there? Why are you simply keeping them alive in a state of suffering? The inhabitants of Vrindavan do not want you to be dressed like a prince, nor do they want you to associate with great warriors in a different country. They cannot leave the land of Vrindavan, and without your presence, they are all dying. What is their condition to be? My dear Krishna, you are the life and soul of Vrindavan Dham. You are especially the life of Nanda Maharaj. You are the only opulence in the land of Vrindavan, and you are very merciful. Please come and let all the residents of Vrindavan live. Kindly keep your lotus feet again in Vrindavan.
Perfect.
Srimati Radharani did not express her personal unhappiness at being separated from Krishna. She wanted to evoke Krishna's feelings for the condition of all the others in Vrindavan Dham. Mother Yashoda, Maharaj Nanda, the cowherd boys, the gopis, the birds and bees on the banks of the Yamuna, the water of the Yamuna, the trees, the forest, and all the other paraphernalia associated with Krishna before he left Vrindavan for Mathura. These feelings of Srimati Radharani were manifested by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore he invited Lord Jagannath, Krishna, to return to Vrindavan. That is the purport of the Ratha Yatra cars going from Jagannath Puri to the Gundicha temple.
There you have it. Yes. So these feelings of Srimati Radharani were manifested by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore he invited Lord Jagannath Krishna to return to Vrindavan. That is the purport of the Ratha Yatra's cart going from Jagannath Puri to the Gundicha temple. Yes. So now, after hearing Srimati Radharani's statements, Lord Krishna's love for the inhabitants of Vrindavan was evoked, and his body and mind became very much perturbed. And after hearing of their love for him, he immediately thought himself to be always indebted to the residents of Vrindavan, and then Krishna began to pacify Srimati Radharani as follows. My dearest Srimati Radharani, please hear me. I am speaking the truth. I cry day and night simply upon remembering all you inhabitants of Vrindavan. No one knows how unhappy this makes me. Then Krishna continued, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan Dham, my mother, father, cowherd boys, everyone else, everything else, they are like my life and soul. And among all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, the gopis are my very life and soul. And among the gopis, you, Srimati Radharani, are the chief. Therefore, you are the very life of my life. So Prabhupada explains, Srimati Radharani is the center of all Vrindavan's activities. In Vrindavan, Krishna is the instrument of Srimati Radharani. Did you know that? In Vrindavan, that's what Krishna is. He's her instrument, that she utilizes him. And therefore, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they still chant Jai Radhe. From Krishna's own statement given here, it appears that Radharani is the queen of Vrindavan, and that Krishna is simply her decoration. Krishna is known as Madan Mohan, the enchanter of Cupid, but Srimati Radharani is the enchanter of Krishna. Consequently, Srimati Radharani is called Madan Mohan Mohini, the enchanter of the enchanter of Cupid. So Krishna goes on, my dear Srimati Radharani, I am always subservient to the loving affairs of all of you. I am under your control only. My separation from you and my residence in distant places have occurred due to my strong misfortune. When a woman is separated from the man she loves, or a man is separated from his beloved woman, neither of them can live. It is a fact that they live only for each other. For if one dies and the other hears of it, he or she will die also. Such a loving, chaste wife and loving husband desire all welfare for each other in separation, and they do not care for personal happiness. Desiring only each other's well-being, such a pair certainly meet again without delay. Then he said, Rakite tomar jivan sevi ami narayan, tar shakti asi niti niti, toma sane krida kori, niti jai jadu puri, taha tumi manoha mora spurti. You are my most dear, and I know that in my absence you cannot live for a moment. And just to keep you living, I worship Lord Narayan, and by his merciful potency I come to Vrindavan every day to enjoy pastimes with you, and then I return to Dwarkadam, and thus you can always feel my presence there in Vrindavan. Mor bhagye mo vishay tomar jay prem hoy, say prem parama prabal, lukaya ama ane sanga karai toma sane, prakateho anibe satvara. Our loving affairs are more powerful because of good fortune in receiving Narayan's grace. And this allows me to come there unseen by others. So I hope that very soon I will be visible to everyone. Yes. And Prabhupada's talking about Premanjana Charita Bhakti Galochanena, how the pure devotee can always see within his heart the beautiful form of Govinda, because his eyes are anointed with the Prem Anjana, the salve of love. Then Krishna says, Radharani, I have already killed all the mischievous demons who are enemies of the Yadu dynasty. And I have also killed Kamsa and his allies. But there are 2 or 4 demons still living. I want to kill them, and after doing so I shall very soon return to Vrindavan. Please know this for certain. So Prabhupada says in the purport that just as Krishna does not take a step away from Vrindavan, so Krishna's devotee also does not like to leave Vrindavan. However, when he has to tend to Krishna's business, he leaves Vrindavan. And after finishing his mission, a pure devotee returns home, back to Vrindavan, back to Godhead. Krishna assured Radharani that after killing the demons outside Vrindavan, he would return. I am coming back very soon, he promised, as soon as I have killed the few remaining demons. I wish to protect the inhabitants of Vrindavan from the attacks of my enemies. That is why I remain in my kingdom. Otherwise, I am indifferent to my royal position. Whatever wives, sons, and wealth I maintain in the kingdom, they are only for the satisfaction of the Yadus. Your loving qualities always attract me to Vrindavan, and indeed they will bring me back within 10 or 20 days, and when I return, I shall enjoy both day and night with you and all the damsels of Braj Bhumi. So while speaking to Srimati Radharani, Krishna became very anxious to return to Vrindavan. He made her listen to a verse which banished all her difficulties and which assured her that he would again attain Krishna. She would again attain Krishna. And what is that verse? 1082:44. Mai bhaktir hi bhutana amritatvaya kalpate dishtya yadasi matsneho bhavati namad apanaha. Lord Shri Krishna said, devotional service unto me is the only way to attain me. My dear gopis, whatever love and affection you have attained from me by good fortune is the only reason for my returning to you. And when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sit in his room with Swarup Damodar and he would taste the topics of these verses day and night, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced completely absorbed in ecstatic emotion, and while looking at the face of Lord Jagannath, he danced and recited these verses, and no one can describe the good fortune of Swarup Damodar Goswami, for he is always absorbed in the service of the Lord with his body, mind, and words. The senses of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were identical with the senses of Swarup. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to become fully absorbed in tasting the singing of Swarup. In emotional ecstasy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sometimes sit on the ground and looking down, he would write on the ground with his finger, and fearing that the Lord would injure his finger by writing in this way, Swarup Damodar checked him with his own hand. Swarup Damodar used to sing exactly according to the ecstatic emotion of the Lord. Whenever a particular mellow was being tasted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarup Damodar would personify it and sing it. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu looked upon the beautiful lotus-like face and eyes of Lord Jagannath. Lord Jagannath was garlanded, dressed with nice garments, and adorned with beautiful ornaments. His face was glittering from the rays of sunshine, and the entire atmosphere was radiant. An ocean of transcendental bliss expanded in the heart of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the symptoms of madness immediately intensified like a hurricane. The madness of transcendental bliss created waves of various emotions. The emotions appeared like opposing soldiers staging a fight. There was an increase in all the natural emotional symptoms. Thus there was awakening emotions of peacefulness, joy, mixed, transcendental and prevalent emotions, and impetuses for emotion. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body appeared like a transcendental Himalayan mountain, bearing ecstatic, emotional flower trees, all of them blooming. The sight of these symptoms
Внешние
attracted
проявления
everyone's
его
mind and
экстаза
consciousness.
приняли умы и
Indeed,
сердца всех, кто
the
видел
Lord
их.
sprinkled
Поистину,
everyone's
Господь
mind with the
оросил
nectar
умы всех
of
присутствующих
transcendental love
нектаром
of God.
трансцендентной любви к Богу.
He sprinkled the minds
Среди
of the
них были
servants of
слуги
Lord
Господа
Jagannath,
Джаганатхи,
the government
правительственные
officers,
чиновники,
the
паломники,
pilgrim
простые
visitors,
люди и все
the
жители
general populace, and
Джаганатхапури.
the residents of Jagannath Puri. And upon seeing the
При виде
dancing and
танца
ecstatic
Шичтани
love of
Махапрабху
Sri
и
Chaitanya
проявления
Mahaprabhu,
бхактивистской любви все
everyone
застыли на
became
месте от безумия.
astonished. In
И
their
сердца
hearts they
их
became
тоже
infatuated with love of
воспылали
Krishna.
любовью к Кришне.
Everyone danced
Затем,
and chanted in ecstatic
переполняемые
love,
экстатической
and great
любовью, они
noise
принялись
resounded.
танцевать, и
Everyone was
подняв
overwhelmed
невообразимый
with
шум
transcendental bliss
от одного
just
вида
to see
танцующего
the
Шичтани
dancing of
Махапрабху,
Sri
все испытывали
Chaitanya
трансцендентное
Mahaprabhu.
блаженство.
Apart from
Что
the
говорить
others,
об
even Lord
остальных, если даже
Jagannath and
Господь
Lord
Джаганнат и
Balaram,
Господь
with
Баларама
great happiness,
совершая
began to
танец
move
Шичтани
very
Махапрабху,
slowly
так
upon
обрадовались,
seeing
что
the dancing of Sri
медленно
Chaitanya
тронулись с места.
Mahaprabhu. Lord
Иногда
Jagannath and
Господь
Lord
Джаганатха
Balaram
и Господь
sometimes
Баларама
stopped the
снова
car, and they
останавливали свои
happily observed
колесницы,
Lord
желая
Chaitanya's
полюбоваться
dancing.
танцем Господа
Anyone
Чайтани.
who was
Все,
able
кто
to see
видел,
them
как
stop
они
and watch the
останавливались и
dancing
наблюдали за
bore
танцем,
witness to
становились
their pastimes.
свидетелями их
And
развлечений.
when Lord Sri
При
Chaitanya
эти
Mahaprabhu
танцы
was
Господь
dancing
Чайтани
and wandering
Махапрабху
in this way,
внезапно
he fell down
упал
in
перед
front
Махараджем
of Maharaj
Прабхупаруджей.
Prataparudra. And Maharaj
Махараджа
Prataparudra picked the Lord
Прабхупаруджа с
up
огромным
with
почтением
great
поднял
respect, but
Господь
upon
Чайтани
seeing the
Прабху, и
king, Lord
Господь,
Chaitanya
увидев
Mahaprabhu
царя,
came to his external senses,
пришел в
and
себя.
upon seeing the king, Mahaprabhu
Видя царя
condemned
Чайтани
himself,
Махапрабху,
saying,
стал
"Oh,
сокрушаться:
how
«О,
pitiful it
горе
is
мне!
that I have
Мне
touched a person who
коснулся
is interested
человек,
in mundane
поглощенный мирской
affairs."
деятельностью».
And not even Lord
Когда
Nityananda Prabhu or
Господь Чайтани
Kashishvar
Прабху
or
ни
Govinda
Кашишвара,
took care of Lord
ни
Chaitanya
даже Господь
Mahaprabhu when he fell
Нитянанда Прабху.
down.
Нитянанда пребывал в
Nityananda
сильнейшем
was
экстазе,
in great ecstasy, and Kashishvar and
Кашишвара и
Govinda were
Говинда
elsewhere.
находились в другом
So Sri
месте.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already been
Этот царь
satisfied
уже
by the
доставил
king's
удовольствие
behavior,
Шри
for
Чайтани
the king had
Махапрабху тем, что
accepted the
поднял
service of
дорогу
the
перед
sweeper
Господом
to Lord
Джаганатхой,
Jagannath.
поэтому на самом деле
Therefore,
Господь Чайтани
Lord
Махапрабху
Chaitanya
хотел еще
Mahaprabhu
раз
actually
увидеть царя.
desired to see the king. However, just to warn
Однако,
his
желая
personal associates,
предостеречь
the Supreme
приближенных,
Personality of
Верховный
Godhead,
Господь
Sri
Чайтани
Chaitanya
Махапрабху
Mahaprabhu,
сделал вид,
externally
что
expressed feelings
рассержен.
of anger. So there's a verse here from
Так
Chaitanya
дальше идет
Chandrodaya Nataka.
здесь
When
стих.
Maharaj Prataparudra asked to see the Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately refused, saying, Niskinchanasya Bhagavad Bhajanon Mukasya Param Param Jigamishor Bhavasagarasya Sandarshanam Vishayanam Atayoshitam Cha Ha Hanta Hanta Vishabhakshanato Pyasadu. The word Nishkinsanasya, it refers to a person who has finished his material activities. Such a person can begin to execute his activities in Krishna consciousness, to cross over the ocean of nescience. It is
Такому
very
человеку очень
dangerous
опасно
for such a
поддерживать
person
связь с
to
мирскими
have
людьми и
intimate
вступать в
relationships with
близкие
mundane
отношения
people
с
or to
женщинами.
become intimately related with women. This
Этого
formality is
правила
to be
должны
observed
придерживаться
by
любой, кто
anyone who is serious
по-настоящему
about going
хочет
back to home,
вернуться
back to
домой к
God.
Богу.
So to teach
Чтобы
his
дать это
personal
понятие
associates
своим
these
приближенным,
principles, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expressed external anger when touched by the king.
рассердился.
But since the
На
Lord
самом
was
деле
very much
Господь был
satisfied
очень
with the humble
доволен
behavior of
смирением
the
царя,
king,
и
he
потому
intentionally
позволил
allowed the
царю
king to touch
дотронуться
him.
до него.
But
Однако
externally he
внешне он
expressed anger
рассердился,
just to
чтобы
warn his
предостеречь своих
personal
ближайших слуг.
associates. Then King Prataparudra, he became frightened when Lord Chaitanya showed external anger. But Sarvabhaumacharya told the king, don't worry, don't worry. And Sarvabhaumacharya informed the king, actually the Lord is very satisfied with you, and by pointing you out he was teaching his personal associates how to behave with mundane people. So Sarvabhaumacharya continued, I shall submit your petition. When there is an opportune moment, it will then be easy for you to come and meet the Lord. So we didn't read preceded this chapter, but there was a chapter describing the incredible mood of Maharaj Prataparuja of somehow or other wanting to be able to personally meet the Lord. The Lord refused again and again and again and again and again. And finally, by the urging of, who was it? Gadadhar Pandit, I think? Was suggested, or Jagadananda Pandit was suggested. That, no, that's his dressing. But that he would be able to see the son of the king. Yes, he would be able to see the son of the king. But then Damodar Pandit, he began to warn Mahaprabhu, because that's his role. He began to warn Mahaprabhu, this is not good, because this, oh, wait a minute, that's a different story, Yeah, that's a whole nother story. But Mahaprabhu met the son of the king more than once, and the king was dressed as like Calvert. So to rouse Mahaprabhu's movements, and then Mahaprabhu embraced the son of the king, and the son of the king became utterly ecstatic. And then the son of the king went back to the king, and when the king embraced the son, he felt the embrace of Mahaprabhu. So, but it was just again and again, the king was so forlorn that he could not. But now we're going to see that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya told, don't worry. Actually, Mahaprabhu is very pleased with you. He's just acting this way externally. And I shall submit your petition when there is an opportune moment. And it will then be very easy for you to come and meet the Lord. So after circumambulating Jagannath, then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went behind the car and began pushing it with his head. And as soon as he pushed, the car immediately started to move, making a rattling noise. And the people all around began to chant the holy name of the Lord, Hari, Hari. And as the car began to move, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his personal associates in front of the cars, occupied by Lord Balaram and Subhadra, the goddess of fortune. Greatly inspired, he then began to dance in front of them. And after finishing the dance before Lord Baladev and Subhadra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came before Lord Jagannath's car. And upon seeing Lord Jagannath, he began to dance again. And when they reached the place called Balagandhi, Lord Jagannath stopped his car and began to look left and right. And on the left side, Lord Jagannath saw a neighborhood of Brahmins and a coconut tree grove. And on the right side, he saw nice flower gardens resembling those in the holy place, Vrindavana.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees were dancing in front of the car, and Lord Jagannath, having stopped the car, watched the dance. It was customary that food be offered to the Lord as a Vipra Shasana. Indeed, innumerable dishes of food were offered, and Lord Jagannath tasted each one of them. All kinds of devotees of Lord Jagannath, from neophytes to the most advanced, offered their best cooked food to the Lord. These devotees included the king, his queens, his ministers and friends, and all other big and small residents of Jagannath. All the visitors who had come from different countries to Jagannath Puri, as well as the local devotees, offered their personally cooked food to the Lord. The devotees offered their food everywhere, in front of the car and behind it, on the two sides and within the flower garden. Wherever possible, they made their offering to the Lord, for there were no hard and fast rules. While the food was being offered, a large crowd of people gathered. At that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped his dancing and went to a nearby garden. Шри
Чайтанья
Chaitanya
Махапрабху
Mahaprabhu entered the
вошел в
garden
сад и,
and
охваченный
immersed in great
сильнейшими
ecstatic
экстатическими
emotion,
чувствами,
fell flat
упал
on
ниц
a
на
raised
возвышенное,
platform.
на возвышение.
The Lord was very
Господь
much
Чайтанья
fatigued
очень
from the
устал
hard
от
labor of
долгого
dancing,
танца и был весь
and there was
мокрый от пота,
perspiration all
поэтому
over his body.
ему
He
доставил большое
therefore
удовольствие
enjoyed the
прохладный
fragrant, cool
ветерок,
breeze of the garden. All devotees who had been
ароматом
performing
цветов.
Sankirtan came there and
Все
took rest under
преданные,
each
которые
and
вели
every tree.
санкиртан, тоже зашли туда
Thus,
и
I have
леглись по
described the
деревне
great performance
отдыхать.
of congregational
Так я
chanting
поведал
by
о
Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as he danced in front of Lord
беспримерном
Jagannath.
киртане, который служит Чайтанье Махапрабху, о его танце перед Господом Джаганатхой.
In his prayer known
То,
as
как
the
Чайтанья
Chaitanya
Махапрабху танцевал
Шри
перед
Rupa Goswami
колесницей
has given
Джаганатхи,
a
ярко
vivid description
описано
of the Lord's
Чайтанья
dancing before the car of
Аштаки
Jagannath.
Шрила Рупа Госвами. Шри Чайтанья Махапрабху.
This is in Manashiksha Vidya.
Yeah, Srila Goswami composed 3 prayers
Шри Рупа Госвами 3 молитвы составил.
with the title Chaitanya Ashtaka. So
Именованы
the next verse quoted is
Чайтанья
text
Аштака.
7 from the first of the Chaitanya Ashtaka prayers, which are included in the book Stavamala. Ratarudhasya rad adipadava oh, this is right. Ratarudhasya rad adipadavi nilanchalapate Agagra premormi spurita natalo lasa vivasha Saharshangayadvi parivrita tanur vaishnava janai Sachaitanya kimme punar abhidusho yasyati padam Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced down the
в
main
великом
road
экстазе
in
танцевал
great
на главной
ecstasy
дороге перед
before
Господом
Lord Jagannath,
Джаганатхой,
master of
властелителем
who
Нилачала,
was sitting on
который
his
восседал
car
на своей
and
колеснице,
overwhelmed by the
охваченный
transcendental
трансцендентным
bliss
блаженством
of dancing
танца
and
и
surrounded by
окруженный
Vaishnavas
вайшнавами,
saying
поющими
holy
святые
names.
имена.
He
И
manifested waves
Господь
of
Чайтанья
ecstatic
распространял
love
вокруг
of
себя
God.
волны экстатической
When
любви
will
к
Shri
Богу.
Chaitanya
Когда же Шри
Mahaprabhu
Чайтанья
again
Махапрабху
be
снова
visible
явит моему
to my
взору?
vision? Anyone who
Явится
hears
моему
this
взору.
description
Ибо кто
of the
услышит
car
описание
festival
праздника
will attain
колесницы, придет
Shri
общество
Chaitanya
Шри Чайтаньи
Mahaprabhu.
Махапрабху.
He will
Он
also
также
attain
достигнет
the
очень
elevated
высокого
state
положения,
by which he
развив
will have firm
непоколебимую веру,
conviction in
преданное
devotional
служение
service
и
and
любовь
love
к
of
Богу.
Godhead. Prema Bhakti.
Прямо Бхакти.
Shri Rupa Raghunatha Padejarash Chaitanya Charitamrita Kohe Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Shri Rupa and Shri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. So that is the end of our
Это
reading for
конец
today.
нашего
Chapter
чтения
13,
сегодня, глава
entire
14,
chapter describing
полная
Mahaprabhu's
глава,
beautiful dancing.
описывающая
And then the
прекрасный
chapter
танец
14,
Чайтаньи Махапрабху,
I'm
и
just
затем
reading the small
13
summary
глава,
of that chapter.
14
We're
глава,
going to read
я
it at a
читаю
time.
в следующий
Probably
раз.
on
Сейчас,
today's Tuesday, so probably on
возможно, сегодня во
Thursday.
вторник, возможно, в
So
четверг.
dressing
Читаю.
himself as a Vaishnava,
Облачившись, итак,
Maharaj
14
Prataparuja
глава,
entered the garden
облачившись в
at
одежду
Balagandi
Вайшнава, Махараджа
alone, and he began reciting verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam.
сопровождающих вошел в сад
He then took the
Балангади и
opportunity
начал
to
декламировать стихи
massage the
Шримад
lotus feet
Бхагаватам.
of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Воспользовавшись случаем,
And the
он
Lord, in
принял
his
на
ecstatic
самого
love for
себя
Krishna,
лотосную стопу
immediately
Чайтаньи
embraced the
Махапрабху
king
в экстазе
and thus
любви
bestowed mercy
Кришны.
upon him.
Чайтанья обнял царя
When
и
there was an
одарил его
offering of
своей
prasadam
милостью.
in the garden,
После этого в саду
Lord
раздавали
Chaitanya
просад, и
also
Господь
partook
Чайтанья
of it.
тоже отведал
So
его.
after this, when Lord Jagannath's
Потом,
Rath
когда
car stopped
колесницу
moving,
когда
King
колесницу
Prataparuja
Радхи
called for
Господа
many
Джаганнат
elephants to pull it,
и
but they were unsuccessful.
никак не могли
And
сдвинуть с
seeing
места,
this, Lord
царь
Chaitanya began to
Парападрахунтара
push the car
распространил
from behind with his
распорядился
head,
привести
and the
множество
car
слонов,
began
но даже
moving.
слоны оказались
Then the
бессильны.
devotees began pulling
Увидев
the
это,
car
Господь
with ropes.
Чайтанья подтолкнул
Near the
колесницу.
Gundicha temple is a place known as Aitota, and this place was fixed up for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to rest in. And when Lord Jagannath was seated at Sundarachala, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw it as Vrindavan. He performed sporting pastimes in the water of the lake known as Indra Yamuna. And for 9 continuous days during Rath Yatra, the Lord remained at Sundarachala, and on the 5th day, he and Surudamana observed the pastime of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. And during that time, there was much talk about the pastimes of the gopis. So when the Rath was again being drawn and the chanting resumed, 2 devotees from Kuling Gram, namely Ramananda Vasu and Satyaraj Khan, were requested to bring silk ropes for the year for the Rath Yatra ceremony. So that's
вместе с
what's coming up.
Прабхупадамадарой стал свидетелем игр Лакшми, богини
I'm
процветания.
going to go ahead
В это
and do
время
one reading and read it myself.
завязалась беседа о лилах Гопи. Когда колесница отправилась в обратный путь и пение продолжалось, Господь попросил 2 преданных из Кулинагарамы, Рамананду Васу и Сатьяраджу Хана каждый год приносить с собой на праздник Радха-ятры шелковые веревки.
And then after that, now is Krishna meeting the gopis at Kurukshetra. 3 chapters of that book. So, we've gone over time, but actually
мы задержались, на самом деле не было времени, потому что Джаганнатх сейчас на колеснице. Все происходит по воле Господа Джаганнатха, и Господь Джаганнатх, он хотел, чтобы мы прочитали эту главу, и мы не могли думать ни о чем другом. И сейчас мы примем прасад, надеюсь, мы немножко отдохнем, и в 4 я спущусь сюда, если не будет дождь, но кажется, что Господь Джаганнатх, у него есть план задержать немножко дождь. Знаете, Господь Джаганнатх, он может задерживать настолько, сколько он хочет, и это 100% факт.
I see. Well, just see. So, yeah. No, he can hold it off because it's only going to be for 3 more hours. Because now it's 2.
Сейчас 2 часа.
They're only planning to do this
и жители деревни планируют Радха-ятру
for about 1 hour.
около часа проводить и затем вернуться.
So we'll see what happens.
Посмотрим, что
Maybe it'll
получится.
come
Может
while
быть.
they're on the parade. But Jai Jagannath.
Jai Jagannath.
Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai Jai Shri Jagannath Rath Yatra Ki Jai Swarup Damodar Goswami Ki Jai Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gautananande, Hari Hari Bol. Jai Jagannath Rath Yatra Ki Jai, Gautananande. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshava Suja, Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satchavachai Namo Namo. Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripasindhubheva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.